Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and you guys are in for a real and literal treat today on this episode. This is going to be good. It's going to be a little bit different from what you guys are used to, I think, because we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about food today, and I think in local food and some other cool things along that line. So I'm excited to be joined by not only John Anderson from our team here at the Momentum Company, but Tim Meagher, who's the COO of Vanguard Hospitality out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Tim, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I love being here.
Yes, we love having you here. Tim, you get the same opening question for everybody. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
I've been sitting on that for a while. I think I use intention to align with values. So if you have a myriad of options, which we all get plagued with decision-making fatigue or paralyzation, intention helps me see clearly like direction. And then you're faced with the choice of choosing to go in that direction, even if it's scary, and or to not do it. And then you have that. So for me, intention is what I'm facing in this question. Is there an option that aligns with values, and am I willing to take that step forward?
Yeah. Wow. I really like this. Just the idea to think about intention, I guess, as kind of a direction setting.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I on the word intention too. It's interesting. I had a flashback just now of like 15 years ago, and I was walking out of the restaurant, and I was thinking about like intentionality, and this is just something that I didn't hear. I just like felt. I was at this point in my career, I was flipping teams of restaurants. So that's kind of what I did. Was I'd go re-energize leadership or right places, right people in the right places, and I remember thinking about all the times that I hear about intention. People around me or whatever, but if you don't take action on intention, it's just a pipe dream. And so once you become intentional on something, you have a responsibility to take action on it.
Yeah, I agree. The latter is what I call well intended and poorly executed.
Yep. That's a soft way of putting it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, welcome to the show. Super glad to have you on. Thanks for being here. What is Vanguard Hospitality? Talk to us a little bit about who you are and what you do, Tim.
So we have 3 restaurants, Grill 26, which is dead center of town in Sioux Falls, Morrie Steakhouse, which is your Chicago style steakhouse, just the woods and protein center of the plate. And then we have Minerva's downtown Sioux Falls, which is kind of like Americana, eclectic American. And this restaurant specifically has been Minerva's has been here since 1977 as Minerva's. In the early 1900s, it was Minerva's Confectionery. And that name Minerva's came from 3 Greek brothers who had owned this restaurant, and then they named it after their sister who was still back in Greece. So there's this huge history here at the apex of Sioux Falls.
Wow, that's really cool. It's fun to hear the backstory and hear what that's about. So I like it. We had the opportunity to partake in some fine dining with you guys during our last Thriving Leader event with Winfield up there, and it was fantastic, man. We had a great evening.
Good, glad.
Yeah,
great conversation afterwards too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the meal was incredible, and then that mountain of chocolate cake. Was, when I saw that come on my table, I was like, oh, holy bucks. I had to take a picture of it and send it to my wife to make her jealous. But but I don't know what was better, the conversation afterwards or the meal. I'll just say both were absolutely excellent. And I mean, that's what it led to today's conversation, right? Is just getting to meet you after the meal, and hearing like your whole a little bit of your journey and what you're up to, at Minerva's, and I'm guessing maybe some of these other restaurants.
Yep.
I'm not sure, but it was exciting for me to hear that, and I kind of just got lost in the conversation, and like I don't know how long the conversation was, but it didn't feel very long. But when I got back to the hotel, I was like, whoa, it's later than I thought. But just being, and I don't know, Mark, maybe I'm kind of taking the reins here a little bit. I don't know what you had.
That's why you're here, man.
But yeah, I wanted you on the podcast because I coming from, so my background, having a small cattle herd that supports our family, and we try to sell direct to other folks as much as possible, and kind of having this conversation with you and your story of what you're trying to do and kind of what's changed for you, and probably what you're probably a little bit unique in your approach of running the restaurant and all this stuff. I thought it was pretty cool. I'm curious, like, fill us in a little bit, like with our conversation, we're talking about it, like what makes you different and how you approach this whole thing. Like what makes that unique for you?
So there's some assumption with that because I don't get out of the house very often. So I'm not sure what other people are doing always. But I would say that, I'm going to try to word this correctly. My approach has been, first and foremost, win-win approach with producers. So this, and I'm going to generalize here. Sometimes we're taught that good business decisions are made upon getting some sort of deal and putting somebody on their heels doing it to get that deal, and then that's a win. What I've come to realize is I don't need to subscribe to that thought process. What I can do is take what I know about my business into a partnership and say, do you know this about my business and how it could affect you? And if it can affect you, let's talk about that, because that, if we go further, then it's not a win-win situation. So I approach all business people like we're all smart. We can all, we have all these accolades in our communities on development, business structure, and ribbon cuttings and all this stuff that we do. But at the same time, have we taken it the extra couple layers in our decision making to protect what it is that we might affect in a negative way? And if so, let's say, as an example of what I'm saying is, if you're putting a new manufacturing facility and you ask this in the community, and you say, you ask the question, does my business, my new endeavor here, could it affect the community in a negative way? And then you answer that. And then you ask yourself, could it infect the environment in a negative way? And answer that question. And let's say the answer is yes to those things. We're all smart enough to figure out the solutions. And so taking a holistic, and I don't mean that in like a fuzzy feel good way, but taking a whole approach to and responsibility to every time I make a decision, who is it affecting? Mm-hmm. And if it affects anybody negatively, what can I do to remedy that? Mm. So on the producers, like I call them partnerships, because what I don't get caught up in is key terms. So like, when I say local, Pierre to me in South Dakota is local, but that's 200 miles away. Mm-hmm. We're only we only have farmland in between us, and so we're still kind of neighbors. And I feel that way, and so I don't use that terminology as like righteous breaking points. It's more what I am saying is we're a partnership. That means that they care about us and we care about them.
Yeah.
So we have each other's best intentions in all our decision making. And if any of us is going to be affected in any way, we assist. Like on both sides, and that's the relationship with all our producers, and we have those hard conversations. And what it does is it keeps A, relationships healthy, and B, business moving forward. Because if you ignore the hard conversations, somebody will end up turning to a different route.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have disrupted revenue streams, all those types of things that happen when it was just truly about communication.
Yeah.
And caring.
You bet. I want to unpack that a little bit, Tim, for everybody's benefit. So long story short, I mean, you guys utilize as many local,
Yep,
as you define it. I'm doing air quotes. People on the podcast won't be able to see the air quotes, but we're using local things that are within a distance where I can get to know the farmer, the rancher who's producing the beef or whatever it may be. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so just talk us through a little bit. I mean, how are you? What is special about those relationships? I heard the talk about partnership and really being there for those, maybe if they're going through a tough time, we show up in support of them, being in conversation with them, really working with them. Let's start with this. How do you identify who you're going to work with?
A very open and loose conversation, kind of like we're having here. Mm-hmm. So it started when I started really going full throttle. I would just cold call people that might be interested, and start a story there. Where are you at in your family business? What are you looking to accomplish? How do you manage that business? Well, then I start learning about values. And what I do know on the leadership side of things is if your values align, there's not a lot of protocol you need to put into place.
Yeah.
Other than open communication, because our producers self-manage based on their own standards. So I don't need to course correct anything on feedback, because anything that shows up to my door is going to be the highest quality they can bring. And if not, we have a conversation. So a lot of those conversations that would be, to work through is processing. So when a processor doesn't know how to, or isn't comfortable, or I'll say small processor, like cutting out the flank steaks or whatever, they don't do that often. That becomes a flag for all of us. And then we all work together. So that'd be our chefs communicating with them, and the rancher will go to the processing plant to help assist. So we're all in it together, and because we identified a place in our system that we're creating where there's a inconsistency or a lack of quality. And it could be simply cryo vacuuming and the size of bag that we use on whole loins, because we go where we can. We get we keep the loins whole on cattle and pork and chickens, I guess. And we do moderate fabrication here, but not everybody is used to packing a whole loin. So we work through like we got freezer burn on this. We got different things, and rather than just leaving and going somewhere else, we all work through it together, because with them they identify the processor, also values align. People who are excited to work with you. So.
Yeah. Man, there's so much nuance into that state.
So much.
So much. Why that approach? And John, I'll toss it back to you for the next question. But why that approach? I mean, I could go to Cisco, right, and buy a box of steaks that are going to be pretty uniform and ready to rock and roll. Seems like that's easier. There's obviously some intentionality in your approach.
Yeah. So things that I think I know is when I spend my money with a family direct producer, we negotiate on the price, and that becomes a win-win situation. So, does this work for you, and does that work for me? And my benefit from that, and I could only learn this through discovery because there's no book for this, is even though I might be paying a higher dollar amount for something, my yields are better than buying off the truck. So I don't know what fabrication standards they're going by, but I yield 10 to 15% better on beef going straight from the producer.
Wow.
And so my frontline pricing isn't a true frontline pricing like off the truck. You have you truly have to take your yields into consideration every single truck. So how much time does that take? So time to me is the true commodity here. And so if I can spend less time worrying about the price of something. So like at Morrie's, my beef purchasing is half of my business. And if I have a consistent price for the lifespan of whatever you project is going to be the feed costs that go into the cattle, how many cattle you're going to have, and where you're making money, and you can communicate to me with that, and we agree on a pricing. My pricing is static for 9 to 12 months. Well, what that does is it allows me to go work on the cardboard pricing, all these other things that restaurateurs don't realize, that buying yourself time actually helps you move, like navigate your own business rather than getting caught up in market trends and all this other stuff. So there's that. I did that initially. It was to just simply cut out the middleman. They're always going to benefit from whatever transaction takes place. And what I've seen is somebody's generally suffering, and it's going to be either the end user or the producer. And everyone in between is always going to take their cut no matter what. So I don't mean that in a negative way, but that's just the truth. So to protect, and first and foremost too, if the independent producer doesn't stay independent, we are going to have future issues. And with supply chains, control, pricing, whatever that is. So there's a balance to everything in life. And this is our way of contributing to the balance of, what family farms want to stay family farms. We're going to support them. And they have the control over environmental practices and quality of life for the animals. And it does matter because then the next step is it tastes different. So I just had a complaint at my restaurant that a couple days ago that the beef didn't taste the same as it did at another restaurant. Well, there's a reason for that, because the specific cuts I have to buy off the truck, they were tasting that difference because they always visit Morrie's, where almost all of that is sourced directly. And so then you have the flavor difference. And so what sets our company apart is I don't have to do much to like modifications to the product. It naturally tastes a certain way, or a certain high quality, and in itself is nuanced. Like the wine industry, when you buy from a specific region, it's very nuanced. And I think that's the beautiful thing about especially people who, or potential guests who want to enjoy a dinner. When you select your cut of meat off of almost like a wine list is set up, you're getting the specific nuance out of that too, versus a marketing plan. So did I answer that?
It's so well. So here's what I took out of that. I mean, there's a lot of things like I'm understanding the food side of our industry at a deeper level. I'm hearing about it directly from somebody who's making the decisions over what goes onto my plate.
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's cool. But I'm also hearing like, and this is at our Thriving Leader program, the number one challenge that comes up across all events that we do, and John and I will run 20 plus events this year, uh, is time management and work life balance.
Yeah.
And so, why do people struggle to be intentional? Because we're running from one hole, we get done filling in one hole, but we're making another hole to fill that hole
Yeah.
as it pertains to time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a lot of people that are stressed out, strung out, running, gunning all day long, and they're not ever really feeling like they have time to go work on the
Yeah.
business versus being in the business, right? And so when you're not in the business every day, negotiating with vendors, trying to get the best rate on a cut of beef, and you've got that locked in for 9 to 12 months. And what I heard is that frees me up to go work on the cardboard,
Yeah. Other
right?
other things.
Which
Yeah.
or other things, which means I
Yeah.
can go focus on like, man, can I save a nickel on that, right? Every
Yeah.
time we buy it, or can I save $1 on this every time we buy it? So now I'm actually working on the business and putting myself further ahead and in a better position, hopefully, to be able to to take care of those local producers that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
And those are my takeaways. This is very, very, very cool stuff.
That's a good overview.
Yeah.
Well, well, to me, so as I'm listening to this, Timothy, it brings us back to like the initial question of being intentional, right? Because obviously, like everything you're doing it's not easy. Like you could probably do it a different way, and it could be easy, but you're sticking to your values, and you're being very very intentional about how you're approaching this, and really like how you're selecting like the partners that you work with. Like so, like my question, I guess, for you, and I remember talking about this a little bit, that night is like, why this? Why be super intentional about this part of your business? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'll answer it the way I think you're asking it. Another way to look at it would be, why interview new employees? Why do you interview them? It's because you're trying to find a right fit. You're trying to improve the culture of your business. You're trying to improve the function of it and your ability to maneuver it. And to me, there's no difference. It's the interview process in selecting the right candidates. When do you go to apply? This is when, especially coming out of COVID, I got this question, from city officials to, whatever. Everyone struggles with employment. And I don't in the way that maybe they're describing, is because I'm always working on it. And I care about the culture. And I don't have any like feel good signs up about culture. To me, I and this is the same thing. What I'm getting to is I look for indicators in my culture in each individual store, even of, are the employees that come in, are they coming on time? Simple things. When they clock in, are they showing compassion and caring about how other people are sitting in their position for the day? If somebody has a family emergency come up, is there 4 people that raise their hand to help out and take a shift? Or because those are the marks of good culture. Because authentically, if you can execute your business authentically, we can all like yell at each other in the back. You have this negative environment and then go out and fake it on the floor, and I don't like functioning that way. So if you don't want to take what everybody else is getting, which would be like to put out a some sort of ad for employment, well, you're asking for people from the same pool that everybody else is, and I don't like to position myself like that. I want to hand select individuals in the same way hand select producers, where you get to know each other enough before you even employ them. And this isn't perfect in every situation, but that's the intention. when we talk about intentionality is if I hire somebody whose values align with what we value, they'll be supported by the people in the team already uh, when they come in, and then they're going to enjoy their job more. You know,
Yeah.
and ultimately, that's like a derivative of intense stress is also working with people who aren't happy, or uh, don't believe in the same things you believe in. Well, then it becomes contrast. And same thing with producers. Like when we're all on the same page, like I tell the management, it's always four times. It takes four times longer to learn something new, like a new process, than it should take. And then the next time you do it, it's three times as long, and then half, and eventually it just becomes second nature, which is like working with producers. It doesn't take the time that it used to take because we've developed these relationships. We're on the same page, and what we've created is almost an autopilot version of click, click, buy, like you would get off a truck, uh, because we've all worked together enough to have this understanding and system in place of expectation, and our values align. So if anything's out of that, that's the only time I get a phone call, or extra phone call, other than just enjoying talking to each other. And that makes my business easier to run.
Yeah. I really, really like that. There's there's some setup on the front end of this, right?
Yeah.
It took you some time and takes time to build those relationships
Mm-hmm.
up front. But one of my coaches said to me recently, he's like, I do these things that are maybe less desirable or not exactly what I want to do
Yeah.
in the short term, right? But now I have a lifelong
Mm-hmm.
friend, lifelong partners. Like now I have the benefit of things I can do forever, right?
Yeah.
Or theoretically forever. Short term, a little bit of short term sacrifice for
Mm-hmm.
a lot of long term gain.
Well, there's a ripple effect too. When everybody you come in contact with is on your team, uh, producers, like in my space, they they naturally care. So then they look out for you or introduce you to like people. And there's this back end effort that you can't measure, that
Yeah.
you don't have to spend in, because people are taking care of your business for you then also. And it's becoming aware enough to see that, on the leadership side, that's our job too, is to become aware enough to see like this ripple effect from intentional decision making that you can't measure. You can't put all the data on these sheets, but how does it affect your life in the business? Also has value too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Big time value. Big time value. I think about so many of the leaders that we work with inside of our leadership programs who um, they really, really want to do good. They want to
Mm-hmm.
be intentional. They want to functional as intentional leaders, right? But it's just that it's the day to day grind of just
Mm-hmm.
getting it all in that makes it very challenging,
Yeah.
and at least in your business. And I'm looking for ways that people can relate the same kind of thing to their business. I think everybody's got to find their thing, right? So what are the relationships that they need to be building, or the processes that maybe they need to put in place today that there might be a little bit of suck on the front end,
Yeah.
but it's going to have a long-term significant benefit to their life and business, because once you put those processes and raise the standards, let's call it that. One of our modules that we teach is called standards and stewardship. And standards are basically, we define a standard as this: your current results are a reflection of your current standards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we can look all around us in the world. We can say we can see a lot of places where there's some standards that need to get raised because
Yeah.
the results aren't great, right? We can also look around us and find places where there's really good reflections, and we can say, hey, those are great. There must be some great standards backing that up. But what informs standards? Okay, what informs standards? And for us, the definition is stewardship. When we ask our audiences often, what does stewardship mean? The most common answer we get back is to take care of the thing I've been given. Okay. Which is not wrong, but we stretch it one step further. It is important to take care of take care of what we've been given, return it at least as good as we borrowed it, as in the condition we borrowed it in. But we always reference the parable of the talents from the New Testament, and in the and as the story goes, the one of the master was going away on a trip, and he had three servants, and they each got a certain number of talents, each according to their ability. Right, the first one got 5. The talents would have been a certain amount of money, as it pertains, as we now know, like a lifetime's worth of wages was 1 talent. And so the first one got 5, the second one got 2, the last one got 1. And the master comes back from his big long trip. It's time for the performance review. Let's see how everybody did. Okay. And the first one, who had 5, he turned his into 10. And then the master said, "Well done. Come and sit at my table." It was always around food, right? Come and dine and drink wine with us tonight. The second one comes in who had 2, and he turned his 2 into 4. Okay? Master says, "Well done. Come on and sit down. Have dine with us and party with us tonight." The guy who had 1 comes to the master and said, "Master, here's the 1. I took care of it for you. I knew you to be a harsh man. I knew you to be a hard man, so I buried it." He took care of it. He didn't lose it. He gave back what he had been given, but he didn't multiply it. And his performance review was the worst of the 3. And the master says, "Depart from my sight, you wicked man." And so when we define stewardship is about multiplying that which you've been given. Right? And so when we use stewardship as a way to inform what standards should we have, and this is what I love about your business. I say all this is all context to set up this. What I love about your business is that your standards exude stewardship of your local community, the farmers that you engage with, the agriculture industry, the food industry. And like, this is the reason we wanted to have this conversation is not just because it's a cool story. It is, right? But it exudes a raising of the standards for how we do business between the food space where I go to have my steak and have my old fashioned or a glass of wine or whatever,
Yeah.
and where that all comes from.
I like that story.
Mm-hmm. We do too.
Yeah. Really, like, so what that story reminds me of, and it reminds me of a conversation, Tim, that we were having when you're working a lot with these growers, these producers, and it's not just beef, right? You're working with vegetables, if I remember right.
Yep.
So it's like the whole plate that you're working with folks, right? And I remember you tell me a story of you took this like soil class out in West River or West South Dakota, right? And like some guy come up to you and it's like, what are you doing here? You're like the COO of Vanguard Hospitality. Like, what are you doing digging dirt holes in South Dakota? Like, when you got plenty of things to be doing back home, right? You could be managing employees. You could be there's a lot to really unpack there. But I think it goes back, and I want to hear your take on this, but it goes back to that stewardship, right? Because like, not only are you trying to steward your business there and your employees, the way it sounds, but you're also expecting your producers to steward the land, and you're doing your due diligence to figure out as much as you can and learn about the land, and so you can bring it back to your partners, and really have this mutual beneficial partnership. So if you would just dive into that a little bit,
Sure.
Unpack that.
So I think part of uncovering in the leadership side is your perception and awareness is like a flashlight, and what are you shining it on? And so I ask myself that all the time. So another thing is, it's not just enough to purchase something, go home and feel good about it. Also, I recognize that I listen intently, and I hear these stories from family-owned farms and ranches about things that I never thought I would come into context, which is like I changed my practices to rotational grazing, and my best friend quit talking to me 20 years ago because of it. So there's an immense amount of compassion I have for you know, what do you, I don't expect people to just like take this altruistic approach like this one story, but I hear this a lot, and stick with it. Like, what is the incentive to improve your farm and ranch practices if you're going to lose friends over it? And sometimes it's like people at church, you don't get invited to things anymore, or you get rude comments constantly. And then I'm like, well, what is this actually about then? Because that's a very conditioned response to something that's positive. And so that conditioning goes back generations. And so then in that compassion I have for, wow, you have to deal with that. Um, I un- so I understand that farming practices, and I come from the luxury side of business. So I've been involved in wine for 25 years, and that was my passion. And I understand the agricultural practices around wine. Well, the difference is in that question when I was out in a field digging up soil and touching bugs was I'm trying to understand the cultural differences between the two industries and uh, what terminology do we use for these practices. And on one side, so I'm talking to this, he's from the USDA, true cowboy, and he asked me that. He's like, what are you doing here? In a way, like, how can I help you get the value out of this? And I said, the value is me understanding what you guys are facing, uh, because being outside of their business, we can connect, build these relationships, and support each other, and that's a very human thing that. Uh, some of these, the specific rancher that we were digging up his land on, and he pointed to the house where his friend hasn't talked to him for 20 years. And I was like, then you have to hold the compassion card and say, wow, that's the fact that you still followed through and you have this healthy, vibrant land now, and you are willing to abandon a relationship and stay the course. That's incredible. And what support do you have? And so my translation with all this and why I was there is I understand luxury. So when a winery puts organic on a label, it's celebrated. You can charge $4 to $6, $8 more a bottle because of that. They can translate it to wealth. They can translate it to sustainability. They can translate it to making profits or making it reasonable. So when I see what the agricultural aspect of farm and ranch is faced with, well, and this is what I was explaining to him. I said, so on the luxury side in wine, they use the term biodynamic, you use the term regenerative. They can charge $15 more a bottle. You're battling the Walmart mindset, which is cheapest is best. And you're also battling, if you're selling direct to consumer, if you have an uneducated consumer that's going to potentially buy from you, you're also faced with, like on the beef side of things, fresh, never frozen conditioning from Wendy's. Like, and I'm not saying anything negative about that, but it's market conditioning. And I was proven wrong about some of those things from meat scientists, and called out for it and realized that I was wrong. And it was my conditioning that where I believed certain things were true and they weren't. And so I had to call myself out. So that's why I was out there digging that up. And I love learning. So that's one of the reasons why I was out there. But I also, if we're going to further this movement and make our communities more stable and resistant to, let's say, pandemic number 2, Well, the reality of it is South Dakota imports a lot into the nutrition side of taking care of your family. Uh, and we don't have a really strong infrastructure with local food system. So if you're under pressure uh, and you can't get your ham at the grocery store, you know what state of being does that put you in on the scarcity mindset of things? And why not work on that stuff now together, knowing what each other is facing, uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that we, because that's part of the agenda also, is to help work through like, wow. So on my end of things, what I translated was, okay, I know that I need to celebrate you openly to this potential market, which would be my community, because if your neighbor sees that you're being celebrated, then they might not look down at you so much and
Mm-hmm.
maybe ask you more questions. You know,
Yeah.
what brought you to this? That's unfamiliar to me. Makes me uncomfortable. You know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you know, on that luxury side, it's celebrated. You change your practices. You do you're steward of the land.
It's
Boom. On the farm ranch side, not so much.
it's
And
it's so interesting because we don't, on the ag side of it, all we generally see is the conversation that we're either having, internally, or the conversation that's had about us, right?
right,
And so and it's not always positive, right? And let's be
yeah,
honest, like, a lot of it's really negative, and I know that's frustrating for so many. I know John's got to go because he's got a coaching call right now. Tim and I will wrap this up, but I know, John, any last thoughts before you jump off?
No, I just appreciate you coming on here, Tim, and learning more about your story. So just
awesome. Thank
keep it
you.
up. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, you got
See
it.
you guys.
So, Tim, as we bring this in for a landing, I just want to unpack that last little bit there. I mean,
Mhm.
it's so interesting, so interesting. And first of all, thank you for taking the time to dive in and have the views be challenged.
Yeah.
I think especially right now we're living in this world, the Maha movement, which I think is largely great, but also creates some uncertainty
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
growers and producers, and not always fair,
Hmm.
because I've never met a farmer who's trying to do a bad thing.
Neither have I.
You know,
Yeah.
like, I just grew up with them, grew up in it, farm kid at heart and everything. And I just, like, everybody I knew was always just working their butts off to try to, survive and feed their
Yeah.
families and take good care of their livestock. And I grew up in dairy country in what used to be dairy country in central Minnesota, originally. And now I live in North Carolina, which is a very, very different kind of agriculture, but it's the same story. You got people that are out there just working hard, trying to make a
Yep.
living, trying to feed people, and raise commodities and whatever. I mean, it's all well intended.
Yeah.
And sometimes, obviously, there are certainly negative downstream consequences from anything and everything that we do, right?
Hmm.
But I certainly appreciate your work in getting out there and doing that. What you're doing to bring back and create sustainability between the farmer and the restaurants and everything on a local basis, and I mean, really doing it from I don't know if this is a vendetta or a mission, or if from the conversation today, it just seems like this just makes sense,
Yeah. That's a
right?
great way to put it. It started out as out of spite, and
Yeah.
vendetta may be a good word, because I was frustrated. I was frustrated with the position that our communities were in, or producers were in, uh,
Mhm.
and during COVID. So pre-COVID, it might have been part of a marketing plan, like,
Yeah.
uh, hey, we got this new pork from so and so's producer, and we're showcasing it. And I'm like, who cares about the cheeseburger anymore? Like,
Mm.
this is true. Uh, this is true sustainability, and I'm kind of tired of hearing how things aren't going to work. You know, I have 1,000 people in line who are going to tell me why what I'm doing isn't going to work. Well, I've proven a section of that wrong,
Mhm.
and uh, and then I also have to question, why are all these people telling me that this is never going to work? who are the people who are willing to go figure out if it's going to work, and how long are you going to stay at it to understand it? Because then you have true knowledge and wisdom, and you can whether something works out or doesn't, then you actually can pass that on to other people, which is perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates awareness. And I always preach awareness is currency. So what do you need to become aware of?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question to leave it on right there.
It is
Great,
really,
really intentional question. I want to leave that in your minds today, guys. All you listening, what do you need to become aware of? So
awesome.
good, man. Thank you for doing the show. Thanks for coming on and teaching us about this. I want to say to all the listeners out there that our next Public Thriving Leader is August 19th and 20th. It's in Sioux Falls. We're going to be right down the street from Minerva's, right? Is the restaurant that we were at. So I asked Tim at the start of the show today, before we started recording, like, hey, we're doing a dinner for our round table evening experience, which is teed up for those of you in CEO and VP levels of responsibility in the ag industry to come and dine with us for an evening and see Christine, our co-founder, and my wife speak on her topic, Effective Immediately, which is about how to make decisions and how to create permanent change in the cultures of your organizations, not just temporary change, but also for your lives and relationships as well. And we got some other really cool things going on. All the proceeds from the evening are going to go to charity. And so if that's of interest to you guys, I want you to email me, Mark at the Momentum Company. That's the THE momentumcompany.com, and get a hold of us and find out how to get into that room. It's going to be invite and application only. So a little bit of, we're only going to be taking a small handful, a couple of handfuls of people for that event, but we're going to go and dine with, hopefully get to go dine with Tim for the evening if we can make that work. So thank you guys for being listeners. Tim, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.